Let's talk about the website rollout. I know this is going to be an interesting topic for a lot of folks. We've watched that over the course of the past couple of weeks. One consequence of that has been that everything pre-2020 is not available on the site. I will lament that personally because that means all of my work is now stricken from the obelisk. And in addition to that, the morgue, the hard copy, the clip archive is not open to the public anymore. I wonder, are there any plans to sort of restore this incredibly rich digital and analog record of the first draft of history that stretches back more than 100 years in our state?
So obviously we've retained that. We still have all of that, obviously. When it comes to stories and archives of that nature, we've partnered with newspapers.com, which will still have everything from the beginning of time. You can still search through all of our stories that way. Photos, we still have an archive that we can easily pull things up. Unfortunately, the ability to just dump everything back into the new website, it just wasn't possible, the bandwidth that it would take, and just some of the details that are really over my head as well, I don't understand. But they just said it just wasn't going to be possible. And then we just looked at statistics, and we kind of let some numbers drive that. Anything over 3 years old, that's less than 5% of our online traffic. Yeah. So at some point, we just had to cut it off. But I too lament not having that all at our fingertips, because it's really nice for reporters or anyone doing research to do that. But I would encourage anyone who's looking for those old stories to go to newspapers.com, and you'll still be able to find it.
Gotcha. Beyond the challenge that I just mentioned, how do you feel like the rollout's gone so far with the new website?
I'm glad you asked. Finally, a question that I'm so excited, because I think it went really well. I come from the company who actually owns the product that we just switched to.
Yeah, Lee, right?
Yeah, so I'm familiar with Town News, and specifically Blocks, which is what we call it, and it's a front end system for reporters as well. It's really easy to operate. Most important, it doesn't break very often at all. It's very reliable, which is why over 2,000 news sites in the country use it. Mm-hmm. I think that Blocks, which supports our website, supports something like 36% of the news sites in the country right now. So it's reliable, relatively user-friendly. Users can follow the writers that they want to and just see their stuff. You can easily click on just local news or just local sports if that's what you want. But it does a really good job of offering more. There are 7 stories that you'll see across the top, whereas the old one, I would test it, and you could sometimes only see a couple.
2 or 3.
So if nothing else, it gives more options for a reader, I think. And the rollout I thought went fantastic. The staff here, I thought did really, really well. For it being something that they hadn't done before, and I've helped roll this system out at several other papers within the corporation I came from, I told the staff here that I thought it went as smoothly in Albuquerque as anywhere I've ever seen.
It created some humorous moments on Twitter too, where everybody had this sort of mass freak out of, oh my God, the Journal got sold to Lee. Right. And I'm watching my boy Matt Rise. I'm like, hang on, nope, that's not what happened. So right. that was fun to watch along.
As he is with all breaking news, Matt was on top of it right away, and yeah.
So the item that announced your hire that ran in the newspaper sort of described a mix of skills, watchdog journalism, which we've talked about a little bit, and some tech savvy, right? It is, after all, the year of our Lord 2023, and we're not just bundling news and tossing it into people's driveways anymore. One of the things that really stuck out for me was a quote from you in that item in which you talked about the Albuquerque Journal is not going to be offering squirrel videos, which I read with some delight. That said, I am a regular consumer of what goes at abqjournal.com. And of course, I noticed the green chili cheeseburger videos and stuff like that. Right. So I wonder, what is the threshold for you in terms of something that you do think serves readers, does drive traffic, and then just straight up clickbait? Where's that line?
Right. So as I have learned when I moved within the first few days, is that folks in Albuquerque, they don't joke about their chili. I've been asked a lot, am I a red or a green person? And I still don't know. But that seemed worthwhile just from that standpoint. And honestly, also, we've got a team of journalists who do need to play with this and expand. And I was so excited to see something like that, because it's a test. Clickbait has become a bad word. At its heart, what clickbait means is people are clicking on it because it's something that they want to consume. Yep. I don't think that that's bad. we've coined it clickbait, and it has a negative connotation, but I don't think that that's justified.
Thank you, BuzzFeed.
Yeah, but I guess what I would tell you is what will drive what we do is if people are interested in it. And that's the great thing about the digital age, is that we can see if this has 10,000 people who read it, then it might be important. Maybe we should do more of it.
Yeah.
If it has 200 people who read it, maybe it's not as important. And that's what I love about modern journalism, is you have those stats right away, so we can
feedback, right?
we can tell right away, this is a stinker, let's not do this again.
I want to talk a little bit about sort of the staff at this point, right? An awful lot of institutional knowledge and memory has walked out the door just in the last couple of months. And I mean, with Karen Moses, Dan Herrera, Elise Kaplan, some of the other reporters, it reminds me a little bit of kind of what happened back in 2013, where there were a lot of folks who'd been there for quite some time. I wonder your thoughts on how important that sort of institutional knowledge and institutional memory are at a newspaper like the Journal.
Sure. I think it's important for any newspaper, the Journal especially. Karen was very gracious in that she gave a long running warning to everybody that she was leaving, and really did a lot to prepare folks. Did a lot to help me as well. We got to spend quite a bit of time together, and still now we're in communication, because this is her baby as well. She doesn't just retire and not care about it. So that's been really great. Some of those other, Elise, I had met Elise when I came down and interviewed, and was crushed when I heard that she was leaving, because I think she's a fantastic journalist. What I'm encouraged about is that institutional knowledge was here so long that a lot of it has really rubbed off on the team that's still there. Elise really helped Matt become the journalist that he is, and I think that he's carrying on that mission seamlessly. And I think that you have a lot of examples of that in the newsroom, and those names that you mentioned are still brought up almost daily, because I think that the team is really devoted to carrying on that work. And I think that they are capable enough that the loss of that institutional knowledge is really minimized, because they're so committed to the craft and carrying it on.
What are your staffing goals and plans? What can you do? Are there gaps that you're already starting to look at, kind of making some hires? And then what's your sort of recruiting plan there? Are you looking for experience, young folks? How do you repopulate the earth?
Sure, that's a great question. I don't know. No, all jokes aside, we're currently hiring for a night cops reporter, because that's one of those pressing things that you just have to have.
Indeed.
We have a national search going on right now for a city editor. I have an interim city editor, Gabrielle, who's fantastic, a great journalist, been there for a long time, but she wants to do some other things within our newsroom. So we're going to reach out. And that. Beyond that, a lot of folks have asked me that, especially my own employees, and I can honestly tell them, I don't know yet what positions that we need to fill, because I still haven't got a full grasp on the operations. But I do fully intend to bring some new people in, and when I approach that, I want the best journalists, the people who are going to help the paper get stronger. That doesn't always mean that they'll agree with that I'll agree with them, but you don't want yes man either. You want people who are dedicated to the craft, like I feel like I am. But there's more than one way to accomplish that. So I can't tell you exactly what I'm looking for. It's a combination of everything. It's a combination of experience, attitude, willingness to embrace the digital era, but also strength in traditional journalism. But at the end of the day, if I had to just measure it with one category, it's, do they make us stronger? Do they make us better?
Yes, folks, seem unlikely. Patrick, journalists are obstinate, persnickety folks. So, as I'm sure you know, as well as I do, doing this for quite a long time. I want to ask another question. The Journal has historically, at various times in its history, had a really difficult relationship with communities of color. Obviously, you are not responsible for any of that. All of those things predate you. But I'm interested in how much you are aware of that. And if you are starting or in a conversation now about how the newspaper might more consistently serve all New Mexicans.
Sure, I am somewhat aware of the issue, and it's concerning. I would tell you that it's top of mind as I look for new hires. I would love the opportunity to diversify a little bit more. I think that that would be really key to moving forward in the right direction. Other than that, I feel very comfortable with the staff that we have and that they are devoted to improving upon that. And I'd like to think that our work will show that in the future.
I appreciate you answering the question. One of the things we're addressing in this special that we're creating about the news ecosystem is ownership. So I'm also interested if you are aware of any conversations or any plans in which the Lang family might be talking about selling the newspaper, or if you're confident that readers and this community can continue to expect family ownership for the Journal.
Sure. I'm going to take a drink before I answer
Absolutely.
that one. I would tell you that if I thought there was any threat of the Journal being sold in the near future, I would not be sitting here right now. It's something that I asked about. It's something that I talked with Bill Lang and his son Pepper Lang about in great depths. And they are committed to me at this point, but really to the entire state, to continue this great mission that their family has been carrying on. And there are no plans and no discussions to step away from that or to sell that, which is one of the main reasons that I am excited about being here and that I am here and moving my family here, because a family-owned newspaper of this size, who answers only to itself and its community rather than stockholders, I think is a fabulous thing for any journalist to be a part of. But even on a larger scale, it's a fabulous thing for a community and a state to have.
And starting to become a bit of a unicorn, right? Nationally, not enough of those left, that's for sure.
It really is. It's such a rarity that I feel so privileged to be part of that.
My last question is one that I'm asking kind of everybody who's participating in this special that we're making. And I'd like to start by sharing my perspective on this. I've been in this job now for about 3 months. And a lot of what we do here is news analysis and conversations about the news. And it has become increasingly clear to me that when the Journal is doing the thing, it makes the conversations we have at this table and the analysis that we do of what's going on in the state and the news, it makes that better, it makes that richer. It's incredibly important in the ecosystem, which is why I asked you to come down here today. But I'm curious your thoughts on that. Where does the Journal fit, again, a month into this job, in the larger ecosystem of news and journalism in the state? Where are y'all in the puzzle?
You know, I would tell you that I think we're at the forefront. I think that when you work at a smaller newspaper, you're always kind of top of mind of what the Metro is doing. You're always trying to outshine them. I'm in a new position here now where I think that we are the brightest star. I think that we have the best journalists and the most resources to be at the forefront of coverage, possibly determining what the news of the day should be, but we have the resources and we have the dedication to be the driver of journalism in the area.
I promised that was my last question, but I'm going to ask you one more right now.
Sure.
What should we expect in terms of the future of investigative reporting? That is something that I did at the paper and have continued to do in my career. How important is that to you, and how do you make it happen?
I think it's important because I think the proof is there. You can look at some of the stories that the Journal has uncovered, some of the stories that we have done and are continuing to do that have really affected change, that have raised some red flags on things that otherwise maybe wouldn't be changed at all, and right now are in the process of being changed because of work that the Albuquerque Journal did. That alone tells me that the work is extremely important. The journalists that are working in that are going to continue to have the resources they need to do that.
Patrick, thank you so much for coming. Good luck with the future, and let's check in again a little ways down the road and have another conversation about how things are going.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again.
You bet.